Was Noah's flood a global flood, or was it a local flood? You may have heard this discussion before. I'm going into a little bit of a scientific look at the story now. And if the flood were a global flood, what I mean by that is when the story of Noah says that the flood covered the highest mountain, does that mean it covered the highest mountain in the world? Did the flood really go from Australia clear all the way over to Alaska and cover the whole world? And a lot of people say for that to happen, maybe the mountains before were smaller, maybe there was a great canopy of water over the earth before. All these are good discussions, but on the other side of things, was the flood a local flood? And by that, what people mean is, did the flood, perhaps the area of Mesopotamia and even bigger, perhaps the whole of east part of Asia or west part of Asia was lower than the rest of the earth at that time, and the flood actually did go above the mountains, but it only covered the part of the earth where there was civilization. Well, you may be thinking to yourself, what's the point of all this? But you may have very, very strong opinions on this. And in my opinion, I feel like this discussion is actually more of an interest theologically than the discussion of whether or not the 7 days of creation were actual literal days. And I'll tell you why. Now, last night, I went to my church and I heard someone speak from one of those big organizations that promotes this kind of thing. And so it's fresh on my mind, and so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. One of the things this guy said last night, and this is something I believe is absolutely true, is that the two things go together. On one hand, if you believe that the earth was created in 7 days, which are the actual days that we have, which is 24 hours, then you should also believe, or you have to believe really, that the flood covered the entire world. But if you are one who believes that God carved the earth slowly over a long number of years, then you also have to take the position that the flood covered much of Europe, but not really, or much of the Middle East, but not much more than that. And the reasons are because there are a lot of scientific things that have to be explained one way or the other. So, what is your position, and why does it matter? I think that a lot of people, I think on one hand, I think we talk about this stuff a lot more than we ought to. And so, there's this tendency for me, personally, to say, well, this stuff doesn't really matter. However, it does matter, because a lot of us are teachers and scientists, and you have to know which position you take. But even more importantly, the most important thing that matters is that you feel comfortable with the truth of God. And if for you science is a tremendous stumbling block, because for example, I have a friend who's a geologist, and this person really struggles about how to teach, because they teach in a Christian school, and yet they have enough of scientific background to the point where they cannot accept some of the things they're being asked to teach. This is a real dilemma. For those who struggle with science, I would say that those issues which are truly theological, those are your greatest challenges, because to explain the theology, above all, you have to explain Adam and the idea that everyone truly is descended from Adam. Now, on the other hand, if your stumbling block is theological, such as that, you're going to have problems with a lot of the way that science is taught. So you're going to be on the other end of the spectrum. And my advice as far as which position to take, I don't have much. I don't feel like, I think if you can be comfortable with one or the other, then go for it, because the most important thing is that you feel comfortable that this book is written from God and that you can trust the book. And that's one of the things that people go into about why they think that science is wrong and all that. I kind of gave away my position on the fourth day when I talked about the fourth day, and I kind of wish I hadn't done that, because I think it's just going to trip a lot of people up. But, in my opinion, I really feel that a local flood would be fine, because the most important thing, I think, of both these stories, the 7 days of creation and the flood story, is that, this is the most important detail, that God destroyed everything in the flood. And what I mean by that is every person. If God destroyed every person on the flood, then in fact, you and I and everyone we know is truly descended from one person. And I don't mean Adam, I mean Noah. And if we are all descended from Noah, and Jesus himself is descended from Noah, which we can see that he is, then by default, we are also descended from Adam. Whether or not there were more people at the very beginning or whatever, or more people in the world in all those times, it doesn't matter. They were all destroyed. But it has to be the fact, theologically, that all of us are descended from Noah. So, that could be accomplished in either a local flood or a global flood. We know that even though mankind grew, was on the earth for a good long time, there was really no reason for them to spread out as far as Alaska, as far as Australia. I don't know what the science says. I don't know what the records say, But I do know that National Geographic did do some major discoveries around the Black Sea that proved that there was indeed a huge flood about 6,000 years ago. To me, that is an extraordinary discovery that puts a lot of faith in, for me, that either way this happened, it happened, and everyone talks about all of the different stories around the world. One more comment just before closing. I'm not going to discuss this any more than this, but I used to love this show called Built for the Kill. It was put out by National Geographic Channel a while back, and this show showed me how every animal that it went over the basic hunter animals, like the predators, and it showed how every detail of those animals were built for the kill, basically, how they were built to kill and destroy. And the people who are short earth creationists or whatever are saying, well, how can it be good if anything died before Adam and Eve? They say, well, they assume that when God killed an animal to make skins for them, that was the first time any animal ever died. I don't think you can make that assumption. But for me, I think that if you can't say that the design and the aerodynamic design, everything in these animals that was created for the hunt, if you can't say that is not beautiful, God himself is a hunter, then, I think that you're only able to say so much about God. God is a hunter. God is a hunter, and we see that very well in the flood story. Alright. That's my take on it. It was controversial. This has been controversial. I needed some hits and some subscribers, so hit me.